Hail, Internet! It's Matt. It's Lexi! The Dork Lords and Girl Next Gondor here talking about the newly dropped trailer for the Rings of Power. Very excited about the trailer, but also excited to have Lexi here on the Dork Lords. Obviously, best name on YouTube, Girl Next Gondor, I have to say. But also, he's so knowledgeable about Tolkien's work. I particularly, there's one moment in particular, you were on In Deep Geek recently,
yes.
and you were asked to rattle off the 12 houses of Gondolin, and damn it if you didn't do it. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, Fountain, Golden Flower, I'm out! Anyway, but yeah, so...
Frankly, I was astonished that I could pull those last few ones out of my head. I don't know why they were still in there, but I'm glad that it seemed to have made an impression, so I'm very happy to be on here.
It did. And yes, so many bows to you, and I'm awesome to have you here to kind of break down what we're seeing in this 1-minute trailer. And then we're going to talk about the trailer first, and then I've got some of the images that there were a bunch of promotional materials released this week. We had posters, we had this large photo-filled Vanity Fair article. So we'll start with the trailer, and then, which is kind of what everybody wants to know about, and then we'll go from there after that. Yeah? Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. All right. So let me see if I can bring this trailer up. Let's turn. Awesome. All right. So this doesn't have any sound, so we can talk over it. What I'll do is I'll run it through. If you have a little comment or two to make while it's playing, it's just 1 minute. And then we're going to go back and pause it at strategic locations. So here we go. Trailer starts. I think we're looking at Numenor.
Suitably epic.
I'm feeling this is Middle Earth, maybe like Second Age version of Rohan or something like that.
Romanian.
I'd say like a
pre-Hobbit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think here we're looking Helcaraxe, pre-First Age.
I got shivers.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah. Getting some cool pre-Second History stuff. We got the new elf to the show. Arondir, I believe is his name.
Arondir, yeah. Typical elf move there. There's the Meteor.
The Meteor. We'll talk about Meteor Man.
Meteor. I don't know what that is, but I don't like it.
Like an ice troll, I think. Maybe snow troll.
Something scares me.
I don't know what the explosion is.
I don't know what that is. I've heard that's something.
This right there, that last shot, we'll talk about it, but it's Meteor Man, as Fellowship of Fans calls him, meeting up with a hobbit. We've also got, I'll talk about it later, but now that I've been able to see some casting, I've been able to see some audition scripts that now start to make sense. Like, these are like things that I was looking at, 3 years ago, right, not realizing, and now I'm like, for instance, I think we get like the introduction of quote unquote Meteor Man in one of these audition scripts. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. But so here we go. We're gonna go through this real fast. I'll just get to the best shot of what I consider to be Numenor here. There.
Right there, yeah.
So this looks like one of a harbor. Obviously, the center of the island is where Mount Meneltarma is.
Right.
So one would think that's in the background. Do we think the statue is like Elros or?
I mean, right at this point, again, if we're casting as Isildur, then presumably, even if they're running multiple timelines, they have quite a bit of Numenorian history to draw from at this point. So it could be, let's say Elros, some great Numenorian ancestor, most likely. At first, I was vibing Lindon on this a little bit, but then I saw the mountain and I was like, okay.
Right. I think Lindon maybe comes up later, but I could be wrong. Yeah. But we do know they're going to Numenor pretty quick. In fact, that Vanity Fair article mentions Galadriel is on a raft to Numenor in the second episode. So it's like, bang, we're there. So it looks beautiful. I think it's well realized. So good on them for that.
No, this looks quite lovely. Very Jacksonian shot here.
Right. Now, these guys are the guys that we see in the Vanity Fair article. I'll bring that up right now.
Yes.
It's these guys.
Yeah, these guys. I don't
I don't know that they're main characters. I think they mention them as like nomadic hunters.
Yeah, they might just be kind of local color, I guess. I mean, I think if you know, then tell me. I do not know of any obviously Tolkienian analog for these guys, which
Agreed.
I'm not necessarily upset by, because obviously there's got to be quite a bit of filling in the gaps. It's I was taken aback when I saw these guys at first. I was like,
So are those antlers? Is that what we're looking at? Like they're wearing antlers of creatures that killed?
It really looks like it's got to be antlers. I don't know if they're pretending to be. I mean, it could be like
right.
a megatherium kind of thing, like a giant deer, which would actually fit pretty well with the whole, sort of late Ice Age Europe vibe of early Middle Earth lore, the aurochs and the giant elk and so forth. Thranduil's elk from the Hobbit films is it's been something a couple people have mentioned.
That's a good point.
These were his granddaddy.
So maybe you're right. Maybe these guys are trying to disguise themselves as those creatures so they can sneak up on them to hunt them. I don't know. That's kind of my best bet.
Maybe.
But I agree. I think you might be right that they're not essential to the story. They're just sweep it. We'll back it up real fast just to get a look at this landscape. I didn't see anything else that gives it away, except maybe in the background.
Ooh.
You might be seeing maybe the Misty Mountains. I don't know. Like there's a mountain range back there.
I mean, that's a pretty deep chasm, which to me suggests, like, is there a river down there? And if so, which one? But should we even be like, is that reading too much into it? Can you read too much into it? I don't know.
We can always read too much into it. But yes. So anyway, I would say that is a spot on Middle Earth, inland probably, and maybe near to the Misty Mountains.
Yeah, I would. Those they don't appear to be dwarves or elves. I would suggest probably some sort of mannish strain,
right.
Which to me again suggests more inland, more eastern. They don't look Numenorian. Probably the middlemen.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Agreed.
Yes. Again, based on my 2-second exposure.
Exactly. All this could be wrong. You're like, what? The Blue Wizards? What? Anyway, but yeah. So I think that's our best guess for now. So then we've got this shot of, I think this is, I don't know. It's hard to tell when you see an actress and then you see them in makeup and you're like, is that the same person?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's the actress who's playing Tira. They're calling their early hobbits Harfoots.
Right.
And so I think that this is Tira the Hobbit. She's got what appear to be acorns on her head, which I remembered that one of the posters has somebody holding acorns. And I thought, but I don't know. Tough to tell. Just off to the left side of that screen, though, that fabric looks like it's the robe of our quote-unquote Meteor Man. So she might be looking up at him, perhaps?
Yeah. Well, it could. I mean, it's someone. It could be the Meteor Man.
Because in that audition script, she is the one who rescues him. I'll just say that.
Yeah. She's definitely associated with the Meteor Man, from what I can tell. I'm just saying that in this particular scene, she immediately doesn't she say, or is it just a voiceover? I forget.
I think it's just a voiceover.
She says someone. Yeah. Okay. So it's a voiceover. I can feel it, but.
Okay.
Which would be a weird thing for her to be, because the voiceover, I mean, we didn't have it, but basically the gist of it from what I can get is, we should go out there and explore because there's more to be explored.
Right.
And then I think this is the character they want us to think of as narrating that. I mean, that was just sort of an assumption I made, I guess, but.
I think that's right. I think I agree. I don't think we're hearing, for instance, Galadriel in that moment.
It certainly doesn't sound like Galadriel, no.
Yeah, okay. We'll flash it forward. So here, we have this waterfall first, but I think this is, I think this is all part of the Helcaraxe. So what we've got here then is, this is almost certainly from the first episode, where we're going to have, the Feanorians, the Feanorians and the Galadriel crossing this icy wasteland to try to get to Middle Earth, and we're going to see that treacherous route. It's described. Tolkien describes it as one of the most harrowing experiences the elves ever undertook. So
Yeah, it's approaches the Lovecraftian in the sort of cosmic horror of what the elves endured.
Yeah. So that's really cool to see. And, if you'd asked me a year ago, would I have expected to see them do some pre-First Age stuff? I'd be like, hell no. But no, they are, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. And so, we get this action shot of Galadriel there. And we can see there the 8-pointed star.
Mm-hmm, the very controversial 8-pointed star.
Right. We're seeing that crop up in a lot of costumes. When we get to the costume shots, we'll point that out. But
yeah, I have thoughts on that. I'll save them. But yeah.
Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So, yes, she is clinging to the ice. And if you look, let me see if it might be too small, but look below her. I believe there are other capes flowing, suggesting there are other elves clinging to this ice. You can see over down in the corner there. Yeah. So she's just one of many elves that are trying to climb this ice wall, it sounds like, with a knife. Like, oh.
Well, I mean, she's fallen, so the knife was sort of a last kind
Good call. Okay, yeah.
Because that's the other thing about the Helcoroxy, of course, is that the ice is always shifting and tipping and tilting. So I had just kind of a thought.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
Poor little blonde babies, don't get too chilly.
Right. I don't know that they're wearing the best outfits for the cold, frankly.
I mean,
but
they are elves, and they weren't expecting to have to do this. But
yeah. Living in Chicago, I'm like, that's not what I would wear.
The chainmail against the skin, I have questions.
Right. Exactly. In a frozen tundra. All right. So here we've got again what I believe is from episode 2, because the Vanity Fair article mentions in episode 2, Galadriel. And this a character made up for the show, a human named Halbrand, they take a raft and I think they get picked up by Elendil, perhaps. Anyway, they end up in Numenor, and I think this is part of their deadly raft trip to New. And in fact, here I'll bring up the Vanity Fair again because it has a really cool shot of this set. See if I can find it real fast. Yeah. So here they are on set doing that raft thing. Which look at that giant water set. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that they that this isn't just CG and green screen. They actually built basically a giant ocean for them to float in.
right, which is fantastic. Love it. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, so let's. I don't know if we can get any other hints out of that. Let me back that up real fast, but it's kind of dark and
fellowship, and she's on a raft, and he's on a raft, and it's very.
There's actually another audition script that, again, until now I didn't realize was the two of them, but I'm almost 100% sure is now. And there's one that I believe is taking place before they get on the raft, where he's basically abandoned his group. Like, he's in some kind of he's a middleman. He's one of these human from Middle-earth, and he's on some kind of patrol, and he kind of gives up his patrol to save himself. And she calls him out on it in this audition script, and he's like, hey, you got to survive. And then we have another version, like post-raft, I believe they're on Numenor, and they're describing like, oh, we're being chased by what I assume to be Numenorians on horses. We're on foot. They're going to catch us, and they're trying to figure out how best to survive. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this appears to be the treacherous journey to Numenor via raft.
I just keep cracking up every time you say deadly raft journey to Numenor. It's like, what? I can only hope that there were some very extenuating circumstances in the plot that necessitated the taking of a raft.
I'm hoping what it means is they get picked up. Like, for instance,
pretty quickly, I hope.
And then, and then brought there as like either prisoners or, hey, we're not sure about you guys. But, so here we get Arondir, and we'll definitely be talking more about him in the posters. Mm-hmm. But he is a Sylvan elf, and he is apparently having a relationship with a human woman, Bronwyn.
As one does.
And his armor is something I want to talk about a little bit later, because
Ooh, yes, please.
That there's a face on it, and I kind of want to. I
is.
got a theory or two about that. So okay, so yeah, there's some other cool. While I'm doing it, I keep throwing in these Vanity Fair shots. Why not? There's a Vanity Fair shot of, there we go.
Yes, this one.
So this is Arondir and Bronwyn, and I believe they're probably at the human village, if I had to guess.
Doesn't look terribly elven, gotta say.
Right. So she is apparently a healer. I found, again, I was able to connect her her character description now that I know who it is. She apparently is a single mother raising a teenage son. And so
Holy
she's...
cats.
Yeah, and she's a healer.
Well, I knew single mother.
Okay.
I did not know teenage son. Wow, she
yeah.
must have done her Pilates. She's gotten some facials done. She is in fantastic shape.
Now, this also, the actress was Nazanin Baniati, I believe. I know her from Counterpart, which is a show that it only went for 2 seasons and got taken off. Great show. It's a sci-fi premise show, but she was one of the main people in it and was amazing in it. I just remember seeing her in that show. I was like, note to self, that is a very talented actress. So when I saw that she was in this show, I was like, all right, nicely done. So good casting for the show. All right, Before the Ring. All right.
Meteor
We had the meteor coming across the sky. Whoop!
No.
There he goes.
There he goes.
Yeah, and they say in the Vanity Fair article again, like, this is one of the most enigmatic characters in the show, and they're keeping a big secret on who this is. We'll talk about that a little more length a little bit later, but yes, who is supposedly that's a person who is, so yeah.
There is a person in there. Okay, who's this? Because I can never tell my elves apart.
Okay, this I feel fairly certain is Gil-galad.
Okay.
So yeah, he's standing on what looks like some kind of an elven platform. You see some writing there on the outside of the stone. And we'll look back. He's one of the costumes that we've got that we'll take a look at in a second. But I think if you match the costume up, it matches. So this. Oh, wait. Let me back that up. This is an interesting shot.
Yes.
So
this is only for a second.
It's Galadriel on horseback. I don't know that the people riding with her. I guess they have the same. The horses have the same armor on, but the people don't look quite the same. But
yeah, especially if you said earlier if there's a suggestion that she and Helga
right.
are at some point on foot, and there's a discussion about how, they're never going to make it. Well, if she takes one of their horses. Right.
Good call.
But yeah, it's because she is clearly, she's in armor here, it seems to me. So this is something that she is somewhat prepared for. She's not fresh off the raft, as it were.
Right. Great point. So it's probably before the raft. Yeah, we'd think.
One
maybe.
would think.
Okay.
I mean, who knows?
Did she take her armor with her on the raft? Who knows?
I don't know.
That's what if you're on a makeshift raft made out of crates, probably the 150-pound armor, maybe you leave that behind. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's elven armor. Maybe it's.
Oh, that's true. Great point. It weighs 2 ounces.
She's half Tolarian. It's like she can discuss it with Ase and make herself float. I don't know.
All right, there you go. All right.
Yes.
So this, at first, I was confused on this because I thought in first viewing that was more of Galadriel, but it's not.
Got the same costume, but I believe that is a gent.
Yeah, I think that's a
Look
guy.
At that shin.
Yep. So this is, I think this is more of the Hel Caraxe. Mm-hmm. And this is another elf who has just run into what I believe is some kind of a troll. Like an ice troll, snow troll, something like that. That's some denizen of the Hel Caraxe that's going to require some dealing with.
He's got very chompy jaws.
He does. Okay. He's not scared of the fire or something like that. So we're not sure who that is. I couldn't tell you the character. Okay, let's back this up. So this is what I thought might be Linden, because I zoomed in on this. There's a whole bunch of elves there, and I believe one of them with his back turned has a golden cloak. So I think it's Gil-galad.
Now on the against that, I would say Well, look at those trees. We've got like very white,
Yeah.
silvery trunks,
Right.
very tall, column-like, and then the very golden leaves. So, I
I think
mean,
this over to the right,
were
I
there
think is
Mallory
water.
and Linden? Yeah, that's some kind of waterfall off a chasm, from what I can tell.
Yeah, no, I don't believe that
Oh,
Linden's got the trees, the Malorns.
yeah. Wait. Now,
So you're suggesting it might be Lorien, in other
well, I'm
words.
suggesting it might be Lauren, but I'm trying to remember where Lorien got the Malorn trees. There was something about Malorn. It was
They
either
got him, I believe,
Numenor
seeds
or
from Numenor. Yep, I think
yeah.
that's right. Maybe.
So I mean, it could be any number of things, but they look like Malorn trees to me, or at least that they're trying to go for that vibe. But that doesn't itself necessarily narrow it down to Lorien in the second
Gotcha.
age. Unfortunately, that's my only
Okay.
comment on that.
It is an elven enclave of some kind because I think
Very
almost everybody
elfy.
in there are elves. So it's,
Yeah.
I would say, safe bet it's either Linden on the coast or it's Lorien. I mean, I suppose it could be Rivendell as well, though that doesn't,
Rivendell. Would
doesn't
that be
come into
established
play.
with
No.
as young as they're slanting Elrond to be, and if we're not, we haven't seen the forging yet.
That
It's,
great
there's
point. It's the whole. We'll get to it with the Vanity Fair
there's so
article,
much
but the
confusion. Yeah, we'll get into it.
single point in time. You're like,
Oh my goodness.
what does
Yeah,
that mean?
And the fact that if you compare, what the author of the article says to what the actual quotes are, and then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah. So,
All right, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Here we get our Durin the Fourth, I believe.
Very nice.
So yeah, in the Second Age, you could have had Durin the Third. I believe at this point it says Durin is a prince, so he's not King Durin yet. But okay, this is what was the sign for? What's that?
My baby boy, my favorite character.
That's right. So this is Elrond, and it looks like he's actually in Khazad-dûm. And we know that early on, there's some indication that he goes to some kind of a peace thing to like mend.
Yeah, right. Talking to the
stuff.
dwarves.
Yeah, and yet that stone I think comes into play later in the trailer.
Right.
So look at he's sitting at
there's
stone.
something explodey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Elrond was the character that I had the most emotional investment in this series. Number one, whether he would be in it. Number two, did I want him to be in it? Number three, how did I want him to be in it? Just a range of emotions. But this is something that gives me a slight amount of joy.
Awesome.
He just looks so unhappy, and I'm all about that.
Right. He's looking up, and you feel like all is not great in this moment.
No, he does not appear to be
some kind of setback.
Jubilant.
Right. That's not a, hey, let's play some checkers. Yeah, okay. So he's the thing. And now, whoops. And then we have, I believe, the princess,
right,
Disa,
Disa,
I believe is her name.
Yeah.
So she is, I guess, the wife of Durin the Fourth.
Yeah, right.
So that's probably from the same scene, if I had to guess. I mean, maybe not.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I am really looking forward to based on, the Vanity Fair article mentions, like, hey, they're going to show Khazad-dûm in its prime, full of light. It's going to be, we see the end result of it in the Third Age, but here we see it in its heyday, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that. I think that'd be really cool.
I support the Longbeard expansion. Yes, let's do it.
Not sure what that was, except it seems to be Galadriel on the raft again, maybe?
And they're grabbing her hair.
Oh, I get you. So in other words, somebody has found the raft, maybe.
Possibly. Well,
we don't know.
The ear. Look at the ear.
Ta-da!
They're discovering she's an elf.
Oh, great point. That's why they're lifting the hair. Yeah, great point.
That's why she's like all freaked out, and they're like, "Let's look at your ears."
And because I believe where this is happening in the timeline, this is, I think, going to be kind of, in the later in the Second Age when elves are a big no-no on Numenor, except for to the faithful. So to the king's men, can be problematic.
Syncs with what my understanding is so far.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
Now this is, I just don't understand. Let me back this. This.
Okay.
Nope. So short.
That's the elf.
We know that. There we go.
Okay.
What do we
these?
Think of this?
Is that a dwarf?
Could be a lot of hair and a beard.
Yeah, a lot of hair and a beard. He doesn't look terribly big, like tall. He's proportionally looks like he might be on the shorter side, but that could just be perspective.
Looks like she's not wearing a shirt.
Yeah, I'm seeing she seems to have something on over her arm.
Right.
But,
so you feel like that's a woman that he's holding?
Well,
I mean, I don't know for a fact. I'm just saying that's a good guess. Who do you think he is holding?
Couple things. I mean, okay, so if we've got all this blazing.
Yep.
I said looks like he might be on the shorter side, but that could be a mistake. Is this Meteor dude and Hobbit lass, I guess. Because it really does look like he's kind of crawling out of a comet.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe this is after the explosion or something.
And it would make sense for him to, he appears to be in the natural state, as it were. So there are very few places in Tolkien where I can think of people, being it being okay to be naked. And I just crashed on a meteor is one of the 5 that I can.
That's number 3. That's right, of the 5. Yeah, okay.
On the tier list. Yes.
No, that's a great point. That could easily be that. Maybe the outfit he's got when he gets that burlap thing is something that she gives him just to cover him up, perhaps.
Right, yeah. I don't think Meteor Guy, when he shows up, is going to be particularly a la mode. They're probably just going to have to throw whatever they can find on him.
We do know... Oh, yeah, what's that?
Interesting that if this is Meteor Guy, he has a beard, or he seems to have a beard, which rules out a lot of options.
I'm almost 100% sure he does because, again, of the costumes, which we'll look at in a second. If you look at the top of the costume that supposedly is Meteor Man, there is a beard there.
There's a beard.
Yeah. And in that audition script, when they're talking about Meteor Man, they say that he's a human. They call him out as, so just to say, as in not elf, but yeah. No, that's great. I did not think of that it could be the meteor.
Presumably not Sauron, then.
Presumably not. I've been thinking it is all this time, but if you also read the character description, it doesn't track. It just doesn't. So we'll talk about it here in a second.
We will.
All right. Okay. Is that just more of that?
There, it's just a...
Somebody's getting blown up. Or maybe that's him falling out. I don't know. Right in the middle of the screen there, somebody's in real trouble.
Right. Well, they've got the dude bending over, and then the arm stretching out, and then presumably it looks like the same scene just viewed from farther back with all of the wonderful molten chunks of rock swirling around. So that could be meteor impact dude.
And then somebody off on the right, that could be our hobbits, perhaps.
Yeah, anyway. Something's going on there.
All right, so let's back this up.
So this is weird.
So this is I believe during the 4th, and he is breaking a rock, which could be some kind of ceremonial rock that Elrond was standing in front of, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like, because Elrond, something smiting his hand down on some kind of rock. Now, could have just been a random rock, but it really looks like it might have been this one, and why would they show a random rock in a trailer that's only 60 seconds long when they could show significant rock?
Significant rock!
So
the rock of ages.
Significant rock angers Elrond, and then significant rock gets crushed by dwarf.
Yeah, so we're not sure what, I don't know. Maybe there's just some kind of a ceremony where you're like, we are bonding through this ritual. I don't know. Maybe.
Or maybe it's mithril ore, and by cracking it open, they're revealing that they have access. This is just...
Oh, yeah, okay.
Potentially very silly, but, you could...
No, it's in other words...
There's mithril in them hills.
I like it. That's a good guess, I would think. This one... back this up.
Just a hair's breadth. Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's really short.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
So this, I zoomed in. I believe he has a pointy ear, so I think this is an elf.
It sure looks like a reindeer.
Oh,
the
does
rest of
it?
the character design going on. I mean, we've got the short hair, it looks like pointy ears, and then doesn't that vest look like
Okay,
the
okay.
significant vest? I mean, that's just he's also doing like acrobatics, which to me suggests self. I know he has an axe, but remember that the Yathrim, the people of Doriath, were known as the Axe Elves because of their
Yeah.
skill in wielding axes. So
What I was thinking is this: what he's trying to latch on to appears. I mean, that could be like some kind of orcish siege equipment or something, and like
yeah,
he's chained at the
mm-hmm.
leg, and then he's trying to. It seems like he's jumping with the intention of maybe hitting this thing with his axe to
Yeah,
like hold on. Maybe I don't know. It's
yeah,
interesting.
like he's gonna pull a Legolas and like kind of stab his axe in it, and then use that to swing himself over, and then just kill 40
Correct.
orcs because he
Kill
can,
40
kind of
orcs.
a thing.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So this could be a during a battle. I mean, it makes the most sense perhaps that it is, but we're
I
not.
mean, when I leap into the air swinging an axe over my head, typically it's in the context of a battle, but not
That's true.
always. So
Or birthday parties. Yeah, one of the
yeah,
two.
birthday parties, pinatas. I can't contain myself.
I just wonder if the chain is because either he's imprisoned or is it like part
Yeah,
of his siege and like, hey, what I'm going to do is latch onto this thing, then I'm going to be able to pull something up because I've chained
yeah.
it to myself.
Our
I don't know.
our
Maybe.
two options are Attack on Titan, but with elves.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or this poor guy has gotten himself ensnared, and this is his only way to that he sees to kind of get out of it.
And in the background, it looks like you can see flames. So there's probably a battle going on.
And some
Like,
kind of smoky,
yeah,
fiery, explosiony kind of thing.
yeah. This, now I
This
just
makes me
saw
nervous.
Fellowship of Fans said that this is Fiendrod from the First Age. Now I don't. I'll take them at their word
No,
on
I know.
this.
Fellowship typically knows.
Yeah, they're very good at what they do. I am not a network scoop person. I don't know anybody. I read books, and that's about it. But they do. They've got folks, and so
Yeah,
they say this is Fiendrod. So if it is Fiendrod, and if it is First Age, then
it
it's
does
almost
look.
certainly the Battle of Sudden Flame. It would almost have to be.
Yeah. Well, he's. I mean, there's fire behind him. It looks like elves versus non-elves, so that
Yep.
rules out a few that I can think of.
Interestingly, the orcs that I assume it's an orc that he's attacking, has pointy
Let's
ear.
see. Oh, that's not good. I mean, but I guess the again, if we're looking in line with the Jackson trilogy, their orcs tended to be a little bit, especially the Uruk-hai thing, where they were leaning into the whole
Yep.
corrupted elves thing.
Yep. Yep.
This looks like the same guy from earlier when we had the ice troll bad thing.
Oh, that's possible.
Very
Okay.
bad, very creepy. And then, the guy who's, looking up at him, if you imagine him not screaming in fury and anguish.
Yeah, close your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little
If
bit
we can
nervy.
tell. So that if that is indeed Fiendrod, then that we're seeing him here in the First Age because he is not around in Middle Earth in the Second Age.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing, too, is that, so, there's a rumor going around about someone being potentially Galadriel's brother.
Yes, we'll talk about
And
that.
we
It's
will.
Adar.
But I would just say that the Battle of the Sudden Flame is okay. So Orodreth, we don't know if he's actually Galadriel's brother or if he's her nephew or what that whole and like what access the showrunners have to which aspect of the
Correct.
legendarium. So we'll leave poor Orodreth aside for the time being.
Right.
That leaves us with Finrod, Angrod, and Ignor. Finrod, of course, if this is the Battle of Sudden Flame, this is where he gets entangled with the men, specifically the House of Baor, that's going to obviously become important in Numenor
Shape
later.
Destiny. I just did a video on this, by the way. So if you're out there and you want to know about the Battle of Sudden Flame, go check that out.
Yes, I watched it. And then, and poor Hurin.
Yeah.
And I'm doing one right now. I'm in the thick of editing for Angrod Ignor and Orodreth.
I was going to do, and I still might, but I was like, oh no, I don't know. Girl Next Gondor is doing it. I was going to do Ignor and Andreth for the Tolkien Reading Day coming up in March, which is Love and Friendship. Anyway, but yeah. So
no, that would be great. I like it when people. I like it when a few videos come out on the same topic around the same time, so then people can kind of bounce around and you can get everyone's kind of take on it. But that's neither here nor there. The Battle of the Sudden Flame is where Finrod gets driven back to Nargothrond and gets entangled with what will eventually prove to be his doom, but also the renewal of mankind in the First Age. We also have, this is where Angrod and Ignor, his brothers, and Galadriel's brothers, die, and I put scare quotes around that now, die, because, I mean, you know, I don't know that their bodies are ever recovered, so if I'm thinking like someone who needs to write a really interesting, compelling twist for my Tolkien story.
I'll say that in the book, it's very clear. They say they're slain, sure. But you're right. Slain, if you're like,
they perish. But I mean, if you think about it, it's like, you know, they are slain in the first wave of assault, which involves a lot of like dragon fire and explosions and molten rock, and then it kind of just he takes the rest of that territory, and it's never really recovered by the elves later. So that's kind of the chink in the armor of canon that I see that could be exploited here.
I will say this. Oh, go ahead. What's that?
Which would make sense why that if this is indeed that would make sense why this is the scene they're choosing to show.
So in other words, maybe the origin of Adar, as we say.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll give like a little a hopeful theory on who Adar might be in a bit, but I'll say that if it's Ignor or Angrod, I wouldn't be happy, but I'll accept it. If it's Finrod, that I would be so disappointed with the show if they did that it would almost be a deal breaker for me. Like
Finrod and We Riot, I think, is the consensus.
I mean, he is arguably the noblest character in Tolkien's mythology, and to then recast him as a villain would be just like willfully ignorant of the canon. So don't do that. Yeah. Please, I'm going to assume the show hasn't done that because that would be terrible and they're not going to do it. So they're not going to do it. All right.
No, they're not. They would never, because Finrod is our cinnamon bun. He is pure and sweet, and moreover, he is supposedly, again, this is like one of the few cases we have in canon where an elf dies, we see him die, we bury him, we know that his body is under several piles of rock, and then it is said later that he is actually reincarnated, which is the other big thing, and he is reincarnated in Valinor.
And he walks happily with his dad, and he's fine.
With his finally able to marry his beloved. Like, let's leave Finrod alone.
Correct. So I've got to think they're not touching that, and they're going to be fine with that. So we'll just, until we see otherwise, they haven't done it. Yay for that.
Yay.
Okay, and then we finish with this shot, which is hobbits holding the hand of our Meteor Man.
Yes.
Which we'll see in the costuming here in a second. So, yeah, let's jump then to the costumes. I throw out the first two here. I'm throwing out because we know a few of them. Fellowship of Fans and OneRing.net, and those folks have figured out some of these costumes. So I'm taking them on face value because they're so great at what they do. They're so right most of the time. This is supposedly Celebrimbor. And then this is supposedly Isildur. So like a young Isildur sailor guy. I bring those two up at first just because to think of these guys both in the first season. This guy is slain about 1,500 years before this guy is born.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just to say the amount of time they're covering when and we'll talk again. I'll read the quote from the Vanity Fair. And, maybe I'll do that right now. What the heck? We're talking about it. Let me bring this up. This is the most controversial quote from the Vanity Fair article, and they saved it for like the end. It's like the last two paragraphs. I was like, okay. Oh, that's good. Oh, interesting. Whoa. Yep. So it was, this is the one paragraph. In the novels, the aforementioned things take place over thousands of years. But Payne and McKay have compressed events into a single point in time. It is their biggest deviation from the text, and they know it's a big swing. We talked with the Tolkien estate, said Payne. if you're true to the exact letter of the law, you're going to be telling a story in which your human characters are dying off every season because you're jumping 200 years in time, and then you're not meeting really big, important canon characters until season 4. Look, there might be some fans, some, who want us to do a documentary of Middle-earth, but we're going to tell one story that unites all these things. Okay, so that's the thing that when I immediately read that, I was
Yeah.
I've come down off my ledge a little bit for that, and I think the way I've done it is to say, in any story in life, events have to occur before other events. So to say everything's unified at one point in time can't be true. So, for instance, you can't have Black Riders before the forging of the rings, right? You couldn't have that.
Yep.
So certain things have to happen before other things happen. And in regards with the forging of the rings, in that article, it mentions that the events that are taking place here will eventually lead to the forging of the rings, meaning the rings haven't been forged at the beginning of this series. So with that in mind, I think what we're seeing is it almost has to be nonlinear storytelling. Right? It has to be, we're going to show these pivotal events in the Second Age that are all consequential, and what ties them all together is their connection to the rings. And I feel like that's got to be what they're doing. For instance, Galadriel, if what we've been hearing is correct, episode 2, she ends up in Numenor, and she's convincing the Numenorians, a la like Pharazôn, Muriel, to come and save Middle-earth. Well, that's you've taken Galadriel off the board for that much time, unless maybe you've got a younger Galadriel who's now in a different time frame, maybe back in Eregion. I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts on that? It seems almost impossible to tell the story the way that single point in time suggests. So I'm coming up with the best case scenario.
Yeah, so, I mean, I also took a few points of psychic damage when I read that paragraph. It was a little
-3. Oh.
But yeah. I had someone kind of push back on me, push me on that a little bit, and I went back and I reread it very carefully. To say that they've compressed the events into a single point of time. And then if you actually read very carefully the quote that is given there of Payne, I think it's Payne, right? That's the J.D. Payne quote.
Okay, yep.
That's who they're quoting there.
I believe so.
So that says that they're going to show it all in one season. But as you said, it doesn't necessarily confirm or deny that they will be showing it in a linear fashion. So basically, I think the nightmare scenario for a lot of us was the idea that the forging of the rings would be happening concurrently with Pharazôn rising to power in Numenor, and then Pharazôn would be the one to drive Sauron back, Battle of the Guathlo and all that. Maybe continue on, take Sauron captive at that point, take him back to Numenor. So then instead of, Forging of the Ring, War of the Elves and Sauron, like a 1,000-year lapse, and then finally the downfall of Numenor sort of arc with Isildur and with Elendil and with all those good folk. We would have something where it was all taking place kind of in the same...
And that could be happening.
And that could still be happening. That hasn't been ruled out, and it's indeed, the Vanity Fair article seemed to suggest that at first blush, and that kind of...
Yeah, no, it is like
that kind
palpitations.
Of gives us some anxiety. Yeah, which I mean, it's really gonna depend on what kind of story they want to tell. The idea, the thing that made the downfall of Numenor story so compelling to me is the idea that this guy really hasn't been a serious threat for quite a while. So it's very plausible that you could think that this guy's finished. We can, we can take him back to our island. We can control him. The idea of the decay between, on the one hand, the Numenorians who come to the aid of the Elves, and then how slowly they become more and more ambitious and prideful until they, kind of reach the point of no return, as it were. But this takes generations to evolve and to happen, and the contrast between the promise of Numenor and what it becomes, that would be, I would say, probably pretty significant thematically, stuff that it's hard to kind of replicate if you're gonna
there's
that intervening time period.
It's also just it's one of the defining characteristics of Tolkien's literature.
Right, that's the other thing I've heard a lot.
This length of time, this incredibly intricately crafted history, that if you just decide like, we'll take 3,000 years and make them 20 years, you're kind of just throwing out some of the best mythology that has been written in the last 2 centuries. So why do that? Why not hold on to that and use the strength of this work? It's like you're just getting rid of one of the strengths of the work, I guess, is kind of my thought too. It's like, wow,
right.
Okay.
I mean, I can see there's a trade-off. On the one hand, all the problems they identified are real problems. If you want to tell a story that spans thousands of years with mortal and immortal characters, you're facing a problem where any mortal character you meet if you're doing it linearly, then any mortal character you meet in the first few episodes, you're not going to care about. Because they're going to die. And then, these immortal characters you'll get you can form an attachment. It's like, I still care about Baron, even though he dies at the age of, 35. And then, his descendants I'm invested in, again, in part because they come from that character that I met early on and got really attached to, and then, he's gone now, but this is his line continuing, and you can see traits cropping up throughout the generations. This is one of the strengths of Tolkien, is that we see the events get kicked off and then they continue for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. But from a pacing perspective, and again, trying to be like a very hard-nosed,
Sure. You're thinking
general audience fantasy epic.
You're Amazon in this
billions
moment.
And billions of dollars. Yes, I am Bezos, and I say that we need to have our pacing, especially in this first season, needs to be like rock solid. We have got to keep the audience hooked and just dying to find out what's going to happen to these guys from episode to episode, from season to season. So there's a trade-off there. Now, of course, I, as being someone who's rather more steeped in the book lore than is probably healthy for me or my family.
Sure. Same here.
I mean, it says, right, I'm among friends. This is a safe space.
Yes, it is. Safe space. Safe space.
I would prefer to err on the side of fidelity, as it were, in terms of the time span. And I think, as you pointed out, the Vanity Fair article, even though it is kind of alarming, it doesn't prove or disprove.
Right, it's ambiguous.
One way, it's ambiguous. Yeah. So it's just it's another ploy. I'm sure this was all very deliberate. I'm sure that article was probably vetted dozens of times by multiple different invested parties to make sure that they were giving off exactly the impression and exactly the plausible deniability that they wanted to.
That's right. I would bring up the point of saying, again, you and I come from the standpoint of, hey, we really like the books, but another. Because they also mentioned in this article, it's a 50 plus hour story that they're telling. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, if you were telling a movie, you're like, okay, I get it. You got to somehow contract this thing and do your best. They're not. It's 50 hours. They got time. They got time to figure this out. And I would say if I was Bezos, I would treat this 3,500 years as your elves are your central characters. They're going to be there. Yes, Galadriel, Elrond, Gil-galad almost makes it all the way through. Círdan.
Not Celebrimbor. We can afford to not form any emotional attachments to him. It's not worth it.
Sauron's going to take it. So you've got I don't know. You've got maybe 6-7 characters that could be these are the folks that are going to be there the whole time. Yeah. And then the fact that the seasons have these young, vibrant humans that show up and they try to, do stuff, and then they they disappear, and it almost is part of one of these themes of Tolkien to say like this is the difference between these elves, and in some ways, as you're researching Aignor and Andrith, for instance, I think that's one of the points that comes up there. Is this we see these tides come and go, and we're just always here. I think that theme would be really interesting to play out over that 50 hours. But I get it. You're right. There's a we want to.
I can see it coming from either side, and the fact maybe that we have so many sort of extra canonical mortal characters suggests maybe that's evidence that they're going to go for that kind of approach, where each kind of season will bring back the elf characters that we've become invested in, showing them reacting against the different humans that fall into their paths.
That's a good idea. Yep.
Oh, I mean, but again, where supposedly Isildur is showing up in this season, so that really implies that even if we're doing it more or less with the chronology from the books, that we're going to be seeing all these characters more or less at the same time on screen, even if they are in different, I guess, time periods.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see if Galadriel shows up in different time periods. That would be interesting to me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have her Helcaraxe, and then we have her presumably on a raft with a mortal
at the end of the Second Age. Yeah. That in itself.
That in itself is at least two, but it kind of boils down to, and this is one of the things that I'm super interested in this series. I want to see how it goes. I would like to see it do well, but I don't tend to focus too much on that, and part of that is because I'm just not very quick on the uptake. I still am probably several months behind on all the rumors and leaks and things that have come out.
I can't say I'm up on that myself, but I hear you.
I mean, that's just that's just not where I tend to focus my energy.
Right, it's not your passion. Your passion's like the books themselves. Yeah.
Right, I'm rereading Athrobeth Finrod Andreth, and meanwhile, Fellowship of Fans is blowing up my Twitter feed, and I'm like, I am so glad that I
somebody's doing that work. Yeah.
Exactly. People are doing that work, and they're doing it well. So this is but this is another. That's one reason why I have tended not to be super invested in voicing my opinions on the show so far. But the other one is just because there's so much that we just won't know.
Right. You're right.
Suggests many different, even just this with the chronology, there's 5 or 6 different scenarios that we've spitballed here in the last 10 minutes, and we just won't know which one they went with until we actually see the show.
Come September, this video could be very, very, very outdated. But so it is what it is. But speaking of people in the know that we are thankful for, Fellowship of the Fans, they figured out some of these costumes, so that's coming up here. We have Adar. We'll talk about Adar in a second. So this is supposedly our evil elf who leads a bunch of orcs against the elves, one would presume. This was... Yep. So there we see from the Vanity Fair article. Also that, is this the time to talk about the 8-pointed star? She's got the 8-pointed star.
Okay. Yeah. So traditionally in Lord of the Rings, for example, on the Doors of Durin, the Gates of Moria, we have, this. It's really funny that Gimli's freaking out because he sees the anvil and he says, "Oh, that's the Durin emblem." Legolas is freaking out because he sees high elf trees and he's like, "Oh crap, high elves! I'm just a lowly backwoods Sindarin Sylvan boy. I am not prepared to deal with this." And then Gandalf, of course, who would know, having he's a Maya, he's from Valinor. He says, "Oh, and by the way, that's the star of the House of Feanor." And then, presumably Aragorn knows what's going on with that. I would think that Elrond would have filled him in. But everyone else just kind of shrugs and goes this is the star of the House of Feanor.
Right, sure it is. Yeah.
Right, sure it is. That's right, Gandalf. You tell him. Feanor, obviously, as those who have read the Silmarillion or are acquainted with what it contains will know, Feanor is Celebrimbor's grandfather. He's a very angry elf. He's the one who leaves Galadriel on the ice, for example, with her brothers and cousins and uncle and most of their people. And he has an 8-pointed star as his emblem. So I got into this recently with, I was on Voice of Geekdom's channel with Indie Geek as well. We were kind of doing a 3-parter. Yes, excellent. And they've had, I think think Indie Geeks had me on once at this point. Voice Geekdoms had me on twice, but one of the times was with Indie Geeks. So anyway, they're all,
So it all counts.
we all, yes, they're
a family.
We are, and they in particular have typically very good. They're up on their lore, and they always bring in cool approach to it. But one of the things we were talking about was heraldry in Tolkien, and this famous 8-pointed star of the House of Fëanor. Well, one thing that I brought up, because I had hastily done some strategic Googling before this live stream, so I didn't shame myself, was...
Never!
And also because, as a couple people pointed out, I think later, this was something that was published later, Tolkien had doodled quite extensively the different sigils, if you will, for the different elven houses, and came up with some different rules for that. An 8-pointed star of any kind signifies I believe a prince.
Okay.
So and this holds true, Fëanor's house has this 8-pointed star. It's very flamboyant, it's very colorful. I believe in the later versions there are Silmarils at the center of the 8-pointed star. Mm-hmm. Simplified on the doors, it would just probably boil down to just 8 points.
Right, they have little flames almost,
Right, yeah. This is, I think I have a fatty single-bound copy of Lord of the Rings that's red leatherette, and it's from the 90s, and it's got Fëanorian stars on it.
Nice.
So 4 points is for a prince, 8 points is for a king, and then more than 8 points is either a high king or a sort of ancestral, very important type person.
Okay.
So Fingolfin and Finarfin would be Galadriel's daddy.
Yep.
They would also have had stars that would have been 4 to 8 points, depending on what point in their lifespan you would have asked them. And indeed, I think if you go on and Google what Tolkien's doodles were for Fingolfin's and Finarfin's houses, you'll find that the shape is very similar to the Fëanorian.
Okay.
The Fëanorian star, but the colors are different. I think Finarfin, he's golden and sky blue, because I kind of based my...
Since they all had the same dad, maybe there's a similarity to them. Okay.
Finway's is just a nightmare. I've tried to draw it before, and it's just it's 16 points, and they're all equidistant, and it is very
geometry.
Complicated.
Compass.
It's very much I am Finway, I am the boss, and you will bow before my geography or my geometry.
All right, fair enough.
But then, so the long story short, the fact that she has an 8-pointed star does not canonically necessarily associate her with Fëanor, because both Fingolfin and Finarfin would also have had 8-pointed stars as part of their heraldry, as part of their house.
So maybe it's just in show terms, perhaps it's just identifying her as a Noldor elf, perhaps?
Right. I don't know that they'll necessarily get into the whole,
because we're going to see this come up again in a couple other costumes, so...
Yeah, no, I believe that this is probably something they're going to use to denote... They'll simplify kind of the meaning, but yes, Royal House of Finwë of the Noldor is my guess. Because otherwise we're faced with the rather unlikely scenario of Galadriel wearing Fëanorian...
Right, which she would have zero love for Fëanor.
She would be...
Hatred, basically, yeah.
If Celeborn comes into this at all, I can't imagine that would be a decision that would promote marital harmony.
Correct. This next one is actually Elrond, which I'll show there. That's our guy. And actually, you can see it pretty well here. So what's kind of cool about this staff that he's holding, or this rod, is I'm pretty sure that little end cap is Gondolin.
Yes, I've heard this as well.
And so obviously that relates back to his heritage.
Yes.
And so, his ancestors were there, basically, at the fall of Gondolin. So interesting that he'd have a reference to it there in the Second Age, assuming that's what this is, which I think it is. Okay, so this is our...
This is Arundel?
Arondir.
Wait. Okay. ND. My Sindarin stress pattern is just... It's a nightmare right now.
No, you much better than me on this. So yeah, if you've got a
Around it would have to be, because that's a long consonant blend, so that would lengthen that syllable. I don't know. Okay, let's
okay,
go with
that's fair.
Arondir because
All right, fair enough.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Okay, all right. I just looked at it, didn't overthink it, but yeah, perhaps I should have.
No, I think my conclusion is that I was wrong in overthinking it.
Okay, fair enough. So this is his armor. We know.
Yes.
So he's a Sylvan elf. And this armor has a bearded figure, quite plainly on the chest. So I've got a thought that this perhaps could be Tom Bombadil, that it's a Yarwain, who they would have revered as a spirit of the forest, an ancient spirit of the forest. Perhaps they're paying homage to him in their armor, but I don't know, that's my thought.
Yeah, I don't. So, I mean, just aesthetically, I mean, that reminds me very much of the Green Man carving that is in,
Which is kind of how I look at Tom Bombadil,
right.
but yeah.
Yeah, no, he's very much like he fits in with that sort of mythological archetype. It would. I have to say that it's a little bit weird to me to think of elves who are so generally reluctant to ascribe supernatural or divine meaning to persons or spirits that they encounter. They're very, oddly enough for elves, as mystical as they are, they're very unsuperstitious.
All right.
The things that they revere tend to be either very occasionally the Valar themselves, but even then it's like, they know the Valar, they've met the Valar. Elbereth, but even that, it's like, kind of your very last ditch attempt to get out of a situation typically. So to my mind, that would be strange that they would be honoring a fellow person in their armor. One thing that I had heard that I don't hate as much is Orome.
Okay.
I know that, it's weird to think of Valar as having beards, but if Aule made the dwarves with beards, then we have to assume that beards were included in the Song of Eru.
I like that.
The theme of Eru declared that the Valar actually didn't participate in the part that they didn't talk about, but was revealed to them, and then Aule goes down and he tries to make his best estimation of that, which includes, as we know, a lot of beards, like heavily emphasizes the beards. And the Valar just are kind of basing their physical forms off of what they've heard the children of Eru are going to be like. So bearded Orome on elven armor is my final answer. But and then the other thing it could come up is they never explain it. It's just it's
that's true. Or it could even be a tree herder, perhaps. Although it looks so human, but
Yeah, he's leafy. His beard is very leafy.
Okay, well then maybe that's it. Maybe it's more of an ant thing. But
yeah, and again,
anyway.
There's a very good option that they just they're like, it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. Let's just do it. Right, exactly. We don't have to explain it. Don't make us explain everything. Yeah. So this is Bronwyn. So this is the person who is having a relationship with Arondir. We see her here.
There she is.
The human healer. This is Durin the Fourth.
Very good.
See him there. This is the princess, Disa. And it's the idea of does she have a beard or not? It looks like she doesn't. Although there's an indication that maybe she's got some kind of mutton chops going on. But anyway,
right? She's got like the whiskers, but does that count? Is that enough? How bearded do dwarf women have to be?
I'm fine with the look. I don't know. Yes, technically there is some literature that Tolkien wrote. If you can find it in the History of Middle Earth, where he says that from a young age, both men and women and dwarves have beards. So yes, you can find the text that she should have a beard. If she didn't, it wouldn't be the end of the world to me. I'd be just fine with it. So anyway.
I mean, Aragorn and Boromir in the Jackson trilogies have beards, and they shouldn't, and that
there you go.
is not immersion breaking for me. So
nope, I agree. This is Gil-galad, and we'll just see here. Like I went ahead and put the picture next to the thing. So if you look again, 8-pointed star.
Yep, 8-pointed star.
So
Many
he is a
rings.
Noldor, and so that's kind of like
Yes.
the, he's got a lot of rings for sure. And eventually he will have some rings. But again, we don't know when the rings are going to get forged. If they do in the first season, they must. If we've got Galadriel going to Numenor seeking aid, that's way past the forgings. But
what
anyway.
What if they're running 3 timelines?
Yeah. Okay. I got you. Yep. They could.
I mean,
Yep.
Probably forging of the rings would be, because you'd kind of have to start it there regardless. But
this is supposedly Elendil.
I can dig it.
So yeah, looks cool. I don't believe that is Narsil. However, they were like, we don't think that's actually this.
No.
So he's just got a different sword at that point. This is Pharazôn before he is our Pharazôn. So at this point, he's well-to-do guy who's he's sailing back and forth to Middle Earth, and he's got his finery.
Yeah, he's Gimilchad's boy.
Yep. So this is our quote-unquote Meteor man. But look at the top. See? You see there's a beard there.
No, he appears to... Yeah, that's fluff.
So, again, tough to tell. We'll mention that here in just a second. This is apparently a new character for the show. It is Isildur's sister, Karina, supposedly.
Oh, yes, I remember this, yes.
And that what she's holding there, if you close it really close, is a book. It's got a spine on it, and so perhaps she's got some form of the Chronicle of Numenor or something like that. That she's like the record keeper, perhaps.
Yeah.
The lore master, who knows? This almost certainly is Muriel. For one thing, she's got the white flower there, so that would be the white tree there in Numenor. She's decked out, and then we get to folks we don't know. So I don't know who these folks are going forward, and this is a very evocative picture. And there's all kinds of theories on what this is. I'll tell you what it's not. This is not Narsil. It just isn't.
No.
So it's not. That's the main sword that everybody knows about that broke. That just ain't it. Another sword that broke that people talk about, but I just can't imagine is Gurthang, Turin's the Black Sword. I mean, it broke when he killed himself with it, but then it was buried with him.
And then the continent sank into the sea.
He just somebody. No, he technically it did survive. You could, if you were of an I don't mind desecrating bodies kind of mind. You could paddle out and then unearth it and grab this cursed sword, which would almost inevitably lead to your doom at some point. But you could have it for the low price of desecrating a corpse.
Desecrating a corpse, one of the few humans who is supposedly going to come back.
Right. Yeah, without the sword now that you took it from him. Oh, man, I was going to have this.
His best friend's sword. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. I would be astonished.
Yeah.
If they were going to pull Gurthang in it. First of all, not family friendly.
Yeah, great point. Let's tell that story.
Yeah, no.
That's going to be more Game of Thronesy for sure. Yeah. The other option I came up with was that this is I don't know if it's Second Age though, some kind of a Morgul blade type of thing. Post Witch King, maybe there's it has a look about it.
I mean, you could break any number of swords if you were running a show like this. So it's very swoopy. It looks kind of spiky, kind of sinister.
It does, that hand grip. It almost looks like a skeletal hand is holding the sword. That doesn't look happy.
No, it doesn't scream happy. If it were an elvish blade, I would think that it was maybe Gurthang, but a very sinister elven blade, which leaves us with human, and it doesn't really have the sort of Numenor vibe to it.
It does not.
So I like the idea of Morgulblade, or even just like one of the. Are we going to see Nazgul in this series? Are we going to
Right.
see
You
someone
have to,
give
right? I think.
rings to? Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is, and then the whole idea of a broken sword. Like, what does that symbolize? You
Right.
had something once. You had some sort of power and authority, and then now it's gone. Which
Great
is kind
point.
of what happens with to a ring wraith. Spoiler alert: they don't end up super in control of their own destiny. So
Yep. No, that's a great point. So yeah, I was hoping the trailer might show us this character, but I didn't see this character in the trailer.
yeah, hard to say.
This could be now. So obviously, this is some kind of a proto Rohirrim character. The Rohirrim don't show up until Third Age, way past the Second Age. So
Yeah.
to have this horse lord kind of motif feels weird, but could be a Northman style, person. And sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, just that the Rohirrim, the inhabitants of Rohan, show up midway through the Third Age when they migrate down from their home very, very north along the Vales of the Anduin. But we know that the Vales of the Anduin have been settled even in the First Age. A lot of men stayed there rather than heading west to Beleriand. So I vibe with the idea of this being proto-Rohirric, again, like middlemen kind of thing. They have to have gotten the horses from somewhere.
And I'll show this. This isn't definitive, but if you look here at the bracer this guy is wearing, I'm going to go over to the Vanity Fair photos, and we're going to look at Halbrand, who is the guy that's on the raft with Galadriel.
Right.
Where did he go? Where did he go?
It's in here.
There he is.
Yeah.
So he's got these bracers, and it's hard to tell. The color looks roughly the same. It could be that this is this guy when he's like decked out. We see at one point Galadriel riding a horse, and there's these other horse folks with her. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's this guy. That's kind of my best guess on that.
I would. If you had to peg that picture to a character that we have confirmed, that would probably be my guess. But I mean, it's just the problem is it's like shades of brown. Everyone is kind of looking
right. Exactly. What color would it be? Yeah.
Which is great, once we can see their faces. But yeah.
So this I'm feeling is a Hobbit. We don't know for a fact, but.
I'm getting hobbity, Harfooty vibes. It looks like it has the same kind of aesthetic as the young lady.
And as I mentioned, the acorns, we do see, I believe acorns in like a little crown of acorns that the Tira has. Not sure who this is. The symbols on that scroll, actually, I just did a Tolkien's Father Christmas letters. I read those out at Christmas time. The runes are not a one-to-one match, but they're similar to the style of like orc writing or kind of thing that he put in there. Yeah, goblin runes. Yeah. So I tried to zoom in and translate, and I failed miserably. So,
but I thought that was a good point because you can clearly see that there's some kind of writing, but it's not Kirith, it's not Tangwaris. Like, okay,
correct.
So did they just make it up? But no, I think that was an important observation that they're very reminiscent of the goblin runes in the Father Christmas letters, which are, I think, supposedly, again, ancient goblin writing.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's, whether they're going to argue, because they do kind of also have kind of a hieroglyphic pictograph vibe to them, I guess. So you could go with, like, I think the conclusion here is, the east or the south, Harad or Khand or something like that, and this is some sort of message being brought from one of those realms. So hopefully the goblins got it from the humans and not the other way around.
Right. Yeah, that might have been tricky if that was the case. We haven't met this character yet. I don't really have much of an opinion on this.
She doesn't look dwarfy.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Similarly here.
Other Hobbit?
Yeah, perhaps not. Maybe
there's two of them.
Right. Maybe the. I think in the audition script, her name is Henna, but whether that's the actual name or not, who knows? But Tira and Henna are in the audition script. This is a really interesting character. Again, we don't know anything about this person. But man, it's evocative. This is a walking stick. If you zoom in, I would guess it's like driftwood, maybe. It's like a white wood, maybe.
Are those characters' garments? Could you call that a shade of blue?
I
Perhaps?
know you could. I mean, the blue wizards are a thing that everyone, including myself, hope are in this series.
Sea green and deep green, wasn't it? Or sea green and deep blue. Something.
Yeah, the
They're
little
each a different. They're each a different blue. I like
They
that.
are,
Tolkien
yeah.
was like, "Oh, they're the blue wizards. Okay, so they're blue. That's their color." But one of them is a slightly different blue than the other.
And you have one. I mean, I obviously the Blue Wizards changed over time.
Yes.
The unfinished Tales version of the Blue Wizards, you have Alatar and Palando, and Alatar was the one who was chosen. He's like, oh, this guy's almost at like the level of Saruman. He's like that powerful,
Right.
and he was like, well, I'll only go if you
If
take
I
my
can-
buddy Palando with me. So
Yeah.
it seems like Palando was like friend of the really powerful guy who got to go. But anyway, yeah, we're not sure what we see
Sam.
here. Yeah, right. Yeah, good point. He was a Sam, and we see what looks, I would say that looks more like a claw than a tooth, but some kind of a claw maybe of a creature that's
Looks
attached.
clawy. I just
You know?
had to trim my dog's nails. I'm pretty sure, magnify it 2 or 3 times, and that would be the shape that we'd.
Yep, that we've settled on.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a very evocative. Again, I didn't see that person in the trailer. And then this is, I think, our last one. Interesting. We didn't see this person either, but look at that robe.
Yeah, I know,
8-pointed
I know.
star.
Star,
Yeah.
star, star, star.
So the 8-pointed star here, we've kind of run out of Noldor that would be like big. This could be a new character for the show. I would say if I were to guess a character that exists that might have a, maybe it would be Celeborn because he's married to Galadriel, so he feels obligated to wear the Noldor star.
Yeah, well, Elway's got the star too. I think his is an 8-pointer, but yeah, you would think that he would kind of go a different aesthetic direction.
Yeah, yeah.
Come
So
on, man.
right. So I don't know who whether I don't think. I mean, it could be Círdan as well, but
Yeah, well, and I mean the star motif. I mean, we hone in on the 8-pointed star, admittedly, because it is one of the few things that's specifically called out in the actual Lord of the Rings novel. And it's very like that, with the 4 long and then the 4 sort of shorter cross pieces. But
right.
stars in general are a common motif. Number 1, just generally in textile art in primary reality. But then number 2, you think about the Númenóreans, their island is Elena. It's starward. It's the people of the star. They revere Arendelle, their forebear, who has the Silmaril on his brow. And now he is a star. So I could also see this motif cropping up with Númenóreans.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That is certainly possible.
Heck, dwarves. Why not?
Yeah, right. It was on the door,
It's
right? I don't know.
not a star. It's a sparkle, and the sparkle is of gold, and gold is of dwarves.
So that's that. How about before we go, let's talk about our Meteor Man and Adar, and that'll finish us off with this because we've gone. I've kept you a long time, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I'm keeping you up later than you're keeping me, but yes, I think
All right, so
for
good.
everyone's sanity.
I'll just settle here on the picture of Númenor, and we'll just talk real fast. Okay, so
There we go.
first, Meteor Man. So if you look here, let me read for you. Let me get rid of that. Somewhere I've got this thing. What have I got this? I had the description of the character here. So at one point, this guy was called Derek, D-A-R-I-C, and that was kind of his code name, and maybe that's his actual name. It says he vacillates between stubborn gravitas, and this is the part, and a sense of sweetness and innocence. Mm-hmm. That just doesn't ring Sauron even if he's pretending.
No.
I don't. You're like, really?
Neither of those ring Sauron.
Yeah, an enigmatic figure. He is initially curious, childlike, and very out of place from his surroundings, but with a deep and primal sense of purpose that drives him underneath it all. This is a physical role. Expressive, nonverbal abilities are going to be required. So it sounds like this person has no memory at first, and maybe has is the inability to speak maybe early on. Your thoughts before? Yeah, I don't even have many great thoughts on this, but what are your thoughts?
So, one of the things that everyone has been talking about is, like we just touched on, the blue wizards, and again, canonically, depending on which year you're reading from, which draft that Tolkien's jotting down on the back of his lunch receipts, he's the wizards supposedly arrive all at once, except supposedly also the blue wizards arrive in the Second Age, and the other three arrive in the Third.
Yep.
And then again, supposedly they arrive on boat, except, like, do we know that for sure? Which version are you going to go with? So the idea that someone would show up in the form of what seems like a man, if we can assume that the guy from the trailer in the fiery ball holding the Hobbit girl's hand with the beard.
Yep, and supposedly, according to the audition script, it sounded like it was a human male. Yeah.
Yeah, if this is Meteor Man and he's in the form of a human male, and he's got combined a sense of childlike sweetness, innocence, but also a sense of gravitas, dignity. The idea that he may be oddly naive, but that he's not dumb. To me,
and a primal sense of purpose is
primal, yeah, and sense of purpose. The idea, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm here for. Well, what are you here for? Well, I don't know. I can't explain it, but all of that sounds a lot like Istari before they've gotten a few years of experience under their belt. This is one of the things that is controversial about the Istari, is that we know that in some way they are blocked from accessing their full awareness of their knowledge as Maiar, as Ainur, and blocked kind of from accessing their full power as a result. And then Gandalf, one of the things that makes him so powerful when he comes back as the White is that he's kind of unlocked more of that, so he understands more of who he is and what his role is and how to kind of, what levers to press, as it were. So there's some sort of process by which the Valar are kicking these Maiar back into Middle-earth, knowing what it is that they have to do and having this sort of like innate morality, but also having no idea what Middle-earth is like these days, and not remembering a lot about perhaps their past. So based just on that alone, and based on the fact that he's coming here like in some sort of fiery ball shot from the heavens, that's, rules out a lot. That's not how little elves come into the world. At least not according to my last reading of Morgoth's Ring. So, yeah, all of that, he's got to be supernatural in some aspect. It really doesn't sound like Sauron. He's in the form of a man, like a mortal, a human. My vote is a blue wizard. My vote is This is one of the Ithrin Luin.
I'd like to see them I think of them as a pair. Is the only
right.
My only reticence on that is to be like, why wouldn't they both be there? But they don't have to both be there. It's true. I'll say this also to back up your point. In that audition script, Tira has the line where Henna's trying to say do we really owe this person anything? And Tira says, this time it's different. He's important. Somehow I just know it. No, I won't leave him here. So she's saying this guy is important. Somehow she has some kind of almost, sixth sense about the person, that this person's important, which also, again, cuts against the Sauron idea. This guy's important. He'll kill us all. So let's make sure we heal him and get him back to, you feel like inevitably the character is going to be someone who is beneficial to the good guys.
That vibe of I may not look like much, but I'm actually I have hidden depths. That is really not Sauron's vibe, even as Anathar.
Right,
and
exactly.
Also, why would he need to come on a meteor if he's been here the whole time?
He's been here the whole time. I mean, my other thought was that maybe we're talking about a different Maya. Even maybe they throw out the show is who we really like. And you pick someone else,
Is this the Tom Bombadil origin story?
I mean, Tom Bombadil obviously would be much older than this, but maybe he got kicked out of the forest
Yeah.
Sauron banished him from and being out of his woodland realm. He's lost all his memory. It's a stretch, but
no, it is a stretch. I wouldn't be happy if they did that. But
no,
I'm just
I
trying
agree.
to think of what they could possibly do that's not.
It does feel like this character. Like if you spend all this time with the mystery, we don't know who this is. Oh, he's gaining his memory back, and he's living with the hobbits, and da 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 da. If at the end of it all, he's like, and I found who I am. I'm a character you've never heard of.
Right.
You'd be like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
You could have been that all along, and we wouldn't have cared. Like you almost feel like it has to be a character from the books, just because like they're hiding the ball so much that it means anyway. So I don't know.
They wouldn't go Gandalf with this guy, would they?
I mean, it's in the realm of possibility.
He's hanging out with hobbits. Oh, boy.
Right, and he has a love for the hobbits. That would, again, canonically be like, throw it away.
No. But I mean, we've already
passed, crossed the Rubicon on that.
Crossed that.
Okay, so that said, let's finish off with Adar, who may be, at the moment, the most controversial character that has been described. And I don't think we saw him. Maybe, we did see some potentially first age battling going on, but I don't know that we saw Adar. I don't think we saw that actor.
No.
That's the guy who played Benjen Stark in Game of Thrones.
Right, supposedly we have some stills of him, or of the set that he was on, I guess.
So just to go back to him real fast, he is... I gotta find him. Sorry, everybody, I'm giving you some kind of terrible image flashback. There we go. We just went by him. This guy.
There he is.
So, Adar, as I said, if it's Finrod, that would be terrible. You couldn't have picked a worse person for it to be, frankly.
I would be deeply upset.
Yeah. Do they make up a brother? If it has to be a Galadriel, do they just make up another brother? Still, that would be bad too.
Make up a brother.
Here. I'm going to throw this out.
Yeah.
Because I've actually been. A lot of commenters are interested in this. So, for instance, Thomas, Willa. Here be subtitles. Love you guys, and everybody's been throwing out some good suggestions, and I was taking it all in, and I was like, okay, fine. I'm working for Amazon, and I've been told, look, you have no choice. There has to be an evil elf, and he's got to run a platoon of orcs, and that's his thing. It's an evil elf, so figure it out. Who could it be from the books? Assuming it's not just somebody totally made up. So I went with the idea, like, fine. I'm trying to find someone from the books that would have a grudge against elves, that is somehow connected to our major elven characters, and has a story that is so vague that you could pretty easily adapt it and choose your own adventure for this person's life. And so I came up with, what I ended up with was, there's actually two people. The twins. It's Elred and Ellerin.
That did not occur to me.
Now, again, this is me talking, and again, I have no way of knowing that Amazon's doing this or not. But if I was forced to do it, this is the way I would take it. Elred, we'll say Elred. It's Elred or Ellerin, either one.
Elred, yeah. They're the same. They're the same character.
They're the same. They're the same. They're little kids. I think they're like 6, 7 years old.
Yeah, 7.
When all their people, including their parents, are massacred by fellow elves. It's the sons of Feanor come in, kill their mom and dad, and then they leave these little kids out in the woods to starve to death.
Yes.
Eventually, Maedhros, leader but has a second thought that, maybe killing kids is a little much. So he heads back into the woods. Notably, can't find them.
Them.
And I assume he gave more than just a little search of that's fine.
So long did he search, and finally it's winter, dead of winter, and he gives up and he comes back, and oh my gosh, sorry, I'm really excited.
But so you can imagine if you were little Ellered and you just saw your parents murdered, and the murderers show up and are like, "Hey guys," you're like, "It's not what So they hid is essentially what I get out of that. They're like, "No, we're not gonna." So they had the wherewithal to basically hide from their theoretical enemies. Let's say, over time, maybe one of them does starve to death. Maybe Ellerin dies.
Yeah.
And Ellered is captured by orcs. Could easily happen. Here's this little elven kid out in the wilderness. Boop! Grab him.
Yeah.
Over time, they start to realize he hates elves as much as they do. Like they realize that they have almost like a kindred spirit. And maybe he even feels a sense of camaraderie with, here are orcs. They used to be elves, and now they're being hunted by elves. And here's this, my family got totally hunted out to extinction by elves. So anyway, Ellered over time could theoretically become this guy. Now again, that's totally fanficking that out.
Yeah, no, excellent fanfic. I would write it and I would upvote it. So better yet, orcs find... Okay, so again, like, Girdle of Melian is disintegrating. What is the land that borders Doriath on the border, on like, where the Girdle of Melian mingles with dark magic? Like, that's Sauron's old haunt. So his orc patrol finds, like, a suspiciously noble-looking baby elf in the woods. What are they going to do? They're going to eat him? No, they're not, because they would be, like, on KP duty for the rest of their lives. So they bring him... They would be in some serious trouble. Sauron would put the hurt down. So they bring baby elf back to Sauron. And then Sauron's like, aha, baby elf. And he's...
Plus, just to say
the
his
whole
connection,
thing.
He is Elrond's uncle. So there's your like
better.
Familial tie-in to the major characters in the show. But,
even better, and the whole Elrond-Ellurin parallel where Maedhros tries to save Ellurin and Ellered, but he can't because he can't find them. Maedhros wants to leave Elros and Elrond on the shore because, spoiler alert, Maedhros and Maglor also massacre Elrond and Elros' family. They're really in this business of, like, orphaning baby half-elves. It's like
great point.
Kind of their deal. At
you guys twins? We got a thing for you. Got a deal.
We got a thing. It's gonna be great. We're going to kill your mother in front of you, and then try to adopt you. Moving on from that. Okay. I for some reason that had not occurred to me, and I really like that. Just as a headcanon. But my thoughts on Adar. Again, you found me, this poor innocent little Tolkien nerd lurking in the stacks of her local library. You've scooped her up and put her on a chopper, and you've flown her to the Bezos Mobile, and I'm at gunpoint now, and I have to come up with an evil elf origin story.
Exactly. No choice. I mean, the best option is don't do it. We get that. So, but we have to do it. Okay.
I'm like, that's nonsensical in,
Yep.
Here in Laws and Customs, footnote 8, it says that no elf willingly ever served, and, there's no elf, the elves did not fall as a species, and yada, 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 and it's like, yeah, but we're going to kill you and make sure that your family's Prime subscription is canceled, and I'm like, no, please.
Not that!
Don't do anything. I will pervert the lore. So, number one, you could always go with Mygleen.
Okay,
because he is the one elf that we know, is just went full evil, or as close to full evil as an elf can possibly go, which, he had some different pressures on him, admittedly, but a lot of it was relatively voluntary on his end, it seems like, and he had a lot of negativity, let's say, in his psyche.
Interestingly, he would have a black sword, like we see here. He would have
a black sword, yes. He would be full, I think it's probably Book of Lost Tales, but something where he becomes a captain, Morgoth says, I will make you a captain if you sell out Gondolin to me. And he's like, well, that's not a bad deal. I can tell these orcs to do whatever I want them to do.
Now, he does die in the books, but it may obscure death.
The same way. Yeah, it's a Disney death where you throw him off a cliff and he bounces and he falls into the mists obscure his fall.
Ouch!
And it's like,
my back.
Would you look at that? He's an elf and he had some sort of Morgoth curse on him that bound his spirit to his body or whatever. I don't know. We can retcon it.
Yeah, you can.
So that's the easy one.
All right, I like it.
A little bit of a stretch, but okay. And then the other one, obviously, is I'm going to vote for Ignor because, as I pointed out earlier, he is a canonical Galadriel brother.
Yep.
He's not Finrod, which is good.
Yes.
Let's pick someone who's not Finrod.
Yep.
The one who's like, known to have been reincarnated not in Middle Earth. So let's pick that one.
Correct. Yep.
Again, as I pointed out, like you could argue, probably very likely his body was never recovered. Because that whole region was just torched. The assumption was that they perished, but I don't think we ever get. It's like Fingolfin, we know what happens to his body. Fingon, we know what happens to his body, but Androth not Androth. I keep saying Androth because I've been reading about them. Angrod and Aignor, the brothers of Finrod, fighting on the front lines. Plausibly you could spin that.
Sure.
And then the other thing that I like about that is that this is not my fanfic, but again, if I was forced to come up with a character that had an actual backstory and a reason for being somewhat resentful of his own kind, it would be the one who was forced to, again, he has this love story with a mortal woman.
Oh, good point.
Doing a video on right now, and
she had probably passed away, I would think, by the time the Battle of Sudden Flame happened. Yeah or no?
It says that he predeceases her. Finrod has this premonition. He says, look, he's a warrior. He's going out to fight on the front. He is going to predecease you. And Tolkien notes in one of his commentaries that she survived the Battle of the Sudden Flame, but probably died in the aftermath, a very old woman at that point.
Yeah, she'd be very old, yeah.
Aignor leaves her. So you could go the route where, I loved her. I knew that we could never really be together. Finrod is very opposed to their union. He thinks it's just not going to end well for them. So there's that. You could say the whole, my brother said that we could never be and that it was it was best if I left her. So I did. I was hoping to keep her safe. It didn't work. I was taken captive. Everything I loved was taken from me. I, saw my beloved ripped away from me. I knew that we could never be together even after death, and
if you wanted to throw in the again, this doesn't give an excuse to totally go against elves, but piling on possible things, you would have the fact that Aignor and Angrod were the only two that backed Fingolfin back in the day to say, like, look, let's attack. Let's not just lay siege. This siege is incomplete. This isn't going to work. And all the other elves are like, yeah, but some of us are going to die in that attempt. Let's just stay back. And so as a result, when the big attack came, who was on the front line? Aignor and Angrod. Yeah. So you're like, screw you guys.
His brother dies. Yeah. So if you were really reaching in the backstory and you wanted to find a character that you could plausibly argue with some notes from the lore. Now, obviously, in the story, it ends up very different. Aignor is a very heroic character, I think, at the end, all things considered.
I agree.
But I could see how those elements, because again, he's like what do we know about Angrod? Nothing. What do we know about Ordreth? Ordreth might not even exist. We know nothing about his character, except that the Sons of Feanor kind of make him their underling. So he's not really a character that I'm going to be super invested in based on his backstory.
Okay.
Aignor, I think you can dig in and be like, look, he's got a tragic romance. He's got a lost love. He's got they didn't listen to me and then look what happened. He's got, you could pull the decades of torture and torment, and he identifies with the orcs and
a little Stockholm syndrome or something.
Yeah, and he's invested with with the men now because of the memory of his deceased beloved. You could go that way with that character.
Okay.
So that's kind of my if it is indeed a brother of Galadriel as some people have suggested it must be, and if it is an elf who's opposed to Sauron but still working against the elves.
Oh, I didn't hear that aspect of it. Okay.
Yeah, that he's not necessarily like buddy with Sauron. He's kind of, there's some tension there supposedly.
Okay.
Again, and this was months ago, so maybe that's been overlaid by now. But yeah, one of the things I heard was that yes, he is an evil elf. He's an elf. He's addressed respectfully by orcs. He's leading some sort of attack on men. And at some point, Sauron enters the picture, and there is tension there, but he gives way to him.
Okay.
That, to me, suggests someone who's kind of in it for what he sees as his own motives, but, it's Sauron. What are you going to do?
What do you got? Right, exactly. Fine. All right.
did.
So
Yeah.
I think that kind of covers our chatting about the trailer and the Vanity Fair and all the posters. I hope I think we've covered everything. You have any final thoughts? Something we didn't cover or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I have mentioned, and like you said, we've both been kind of, first of all, we were both pretty steeped in Tolkien to begin with. When I heard about this series being planned, gosh, like 5 years ago now.
I know it's been
Was
so
the
long.
first news.
Yeah.
I was, equal parts elated and horrified. How are they going to do it? Oh my gosh, what if they actually pull it off? My expectations have been modified as I've seen different things come out, different stories, and now I think I'm kind of I have a closer idea of what the show is actually going to be versus what my wildest first extremely fangirlish hopes were that it could be, which doesn't make it bad. It's just it's not necessarily what I thought at first blush what the possibility that it could be. And like I saw the posters and they were cool, and I've been following the leaks and they're cool, and I saw the teaser and it was cool, and I was like, oh yeah, it's all kind of cool. But my expectations were very managed. I will say that when I saw the trailer had come out, I was down frantically trying to make Valentine's cards for my children's classes in the morning, because you cannot buy Valentine's cards in this town apparently for love or money this weekend. I've tried, so we ended up having to DIY it, which was actually pretty fun. But I'm there at the kitchen table and I see, okay, the trailer's dropped, and I went up to a dark, quiet room so I could have some mommy time. Turned on the trailer, and like I said, I was like, okay, let's see where they go with this. And with all of my concerns and my doubts and my questions about the timeline and my concerns about the characterization and all that, I had feels. I felt like a little girl again. I was like, oh my gosh, they're really doing this. And look, that's Galadriel. And look, they're going Finrod with this. I was like, we're actually going to see some of these guys on TV.
And realized in a very attention to detail style way. Like you could see the budget is there on the screen. And like
we saw the stills, and I was kind of, they kind of left me a little bit cold, to be honest, because stills just always kind of look kind of posy.
Okay.
I was looking back at, some of the promotional material for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It was the same kind of vibe where it's like, it looks like a little bit like a high budget cosplay. You're like, okay, but that doesn't feel real. It's like someone's done a really good job of posing these characters and lighting them, but then seeing them in action with the music, with the voices, I was like, I still have many reservations, but there is a sense of reality to it now, a sort of three-dimensionality to it that wasn't there before. And so I wasn't expecting to feel like a little butterfly, a little giddy, but gosh darn.
Yeah. No, it does. It looks great. And as you say, these are some characters that are being realized in a cinematic way that, have only existed on the page before now. So that creative energy is interesting to me, to see that in play. And yeah, I'm on board with the show to see where it goes. Yes, I have some reservations, especially that whole single point in time. Really, like oh God, can't breathe. What? Oh, it's all fading. But I've come back to from the light, and I could see a path forward, that it would still be a satisfying series, and that comment could still somehow make sense. So I'm excited about this, and this trailer only serves to heighten that. You could see the attention to detail they did, and that still image from the Vanity Fair where they see that big water tank. You can see how much effort they're spending on this. Yeah,
made a water tank. Yeah, and that was just again for presumably one scene in the
episode 2 or something. Yeah. So I think I think good things are on the way. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how much more. This might have just been like a single week, and then another 2 months will pass before we get something else. But who knows? Maybe this is like the start of a massive campaign that we just start getting stuff. But if they come out with another trailer, Lexi, I'd love to have you on to chat about that as well.
Any comments?
But
absolute joy.
oh, thank you so much. Anyway, let's do this again sometime. Really, my pleasure. Thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye, everybody.